when he locked me in containers with his shipment of kids. There were kids in there that didn't speak English. There were kids that were sick and that were already dying.
It was just past midnight when the call came. A private number, one of many I'd received over the years. Nothing unusual. But this time, something was off. The voice on the other end wasn't familiar. It was low, deliberate, and clinical. "We have 2 runs for you, no questions. Half the money now, the rest on delivery." I hesitated. The job seemed simple enough. Pick up the load, take it to the delivery point, leave. But there was a chill in the man's voice that unsettled me. "What's the load?" I asked, breaking one of my own rules. "Don't ask questions," he snapped. "The money's good. That's all you need to know." I should have said no, but I had rent to pay, and I'd learned to ignore my instincts when they offered this much money. I accepted the job. The pickup was at a secluded dock near Detroit. The second driver, a guy I'd never worked with before, was already there when I arrived. He looked nervous, smoking nonstop and muttering to himself. The load was already loaded. Massive containers, sealed tight with locks. This time the guards were different, not the usual hired muscle. These guys were military grade, dressed in black, expressionless, and armed to the teeth. "Get in, get out," one of them shouted as he handed me an envelope. Inside was half the cash, brand new bills. No receipt, no paperwork. When we got on the highway, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching us. The ride was quiet, but the air in the truck was thick with tension. My partner didn't say much, just kept his eyes on the road. He trembled every time a car passed us, like he was afraid someone would stop us or do something to us. The destination was a sprawling villa hidden behind high walls and electronic gates, a place you'd never notice unless you knew it was there. The guards signaled us to pass without saying a word, and we parked at the back, where a small group of men were waiting to unload the containers. The villa itself was a marvel of excess. Huge windows, manicured gardens, and lights that emitted an unnatural glow. But it wasn't the beauty of the place that struck me. It was the silence. Even with all the lights on, it felt empty. We were told to stay by the trucks while they unloaded. That's when I noticed something strange. A figure, small and fast, darting between the trees at the edge of the property. At first I thought it was an animal, but then I saw it again. It wasn't an animal. My partner saw it too. "Do you see it?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "Probably just a kid," I said, even though I didn't believe my own words. As the last container was unloaded, a man stepped out from the shadows. He was tall, wearing a black coat. He didn't say a word, just stared at us with cold, unblinking eyes. "Get out of here," one of the guards said, breaking the silence. "Now." The ride back was silent. My partner, who had been nervous all night, was now impassive, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Have you ever done a run like this before?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not like this," I said. He nodded, then glanced in the rearview mirror. "They're following us." I turned around and saw it, a black SUV with its headlights off, following us from a distance. My heart started to race. We hadn't done anything wrong, or had we? "Keep driving," I said. "Don't do anything stupid." The SUV followed us for miles before finally turning off at an exit. But the unease didn't leave me. When I got home, I locked every door and window, something I hadn't done in years. That night, I couldn't sleep easily. The next day, I tried to relax, but the tension wouldn't leave me. I felt uneasy, like something was following me. Then the calls started. The first came in the afternoon. No caller ID. When I answered, there was nothing but static on the other end. The second call came a few hours later. "You've seen too much," the voice said, low and menacing. "Leave, or you'll regret it." I hung up, my hands shaking. That night, I started doing some research. The villa, the containers, the people involved. That's when I came across the stories. TW's account was the first. He described a party unlike anything I had ever imagined. People dressed strangely. doing indecent things. He talked about rituals, chants, and symbols he didn't understand. Then there was AC. Her story was even darker. She claimed she was taken to similar parties as a child, where Hollywood's elite gathered for what she described as satanic rituals. I felt sick reading it. It seemed too unbelievable to be true. And yet the pieces started to fit together. In the following days, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Black SUVs started appearing near my house. My phone rang with unknown numbers. Then the envelope came. No return address, just a stack of photos. They were of me, taken at the villa. One showed me standing next to the truck while the containers were being unloaded. Another caught the moment I looked toward the shadowy figure in the garden. There was also a note, "Stay quiet, or else." At that point, I knew I was in deep trouble. Desperately seeking answers, I contacted an old friend who worked in investigative journalism. When I showed her the photos, she went pale. "This isn't just about D," she said. "It's bigger than him. These parties, these rituals, are part of something much darker." She began digging, uncovering more stories, more victims. The lawsuits against D were just the tip of the iceberg. There were rumors of a network, powerful people protecting each other, hiding atrocities that no one dared to talk about. The evidence was overwhelming: photos, videos, victim testimonies with nothing to gain and everything to lose. As I dug deeper, the stories grew darker. AC wasn't just accusing D, she claimed others, ODW, and high-ranking members of Child Protective Services, were complicit. According to her, children who disappeared from the foster care system were taken to participate in these horrific gatherings. She described scenes that were hard to understand, rituals with chants, symbols, and actions that left scars not only on the body, but also on the mind. TW's story was too close to ignore. He spoke of little people dressed in Harajuku-style Barbie outfits, acting out scenes too grotesque for anyone to invent. This wasn't just about one man. It was a network, powerful, hidden, and protected. Another victim came forward, a man who spoke of an after-party in Miami. He was offered a drink, only to wake up hours later with foggy memories and a sense of violation. He claimed that D had made advances on him while he was incapacitated. Another woman described being abused during her adolescence at a party-like gathering. Her story mirrored others, a pattern of exploitation disguised by the glamour of fame. These testimonies revealed a dark side many would prefer to forget. Lawsuits against D were piling up. TB, the lawyer representing dozens of victims, claimed to have enough evidence to take down not just D, but the whole system that allowed him to do it. But D's team was fighting back, dismissing the charges as baseless. His lawyers called it a smear campaign, an attempt by people seeking fame to grab money. As for me, I still look over my shoulder, wondering how long I can keep going like this. The shadows are closing in, and I don't know if I'll make it out alive. But one thing is clear: the truth must come out, no matter the cost. The shadows wouldn't stop chasing me. Glances, unknown numbers, shadows in the alleys. But I couldn't stop. A journalist gave me a name, SW, a former employee of a child agency hidden in Oregon. She had proof. Finding her was a nightmare, but eventually I tracked her down. Her house looked like a war refuge, and she was a broken woman but ready to speak. "There are no monsters," she said. "Just men, but their shadows are real." She showed me devastating documents, missing children, records, anonymous letters, and a list of names, actors, politicians, executives, with dates and locations: Miami, Los Angeles, Detroit. "Do you know what they do to those who know too much?" she asked. "They don't kill you right away. They make you feel every second of what you've discovered. If you want answers, come. Last chance." The key belonged to a safety deposit box in an abandoned bank, a forgotten building in the heart of a ghostly Detroit. The next day, I gathered my courage and went. The box only contained a small hard drive and another note: "Choose, survive, or burn with them." When I plugged the drive into my computer, the contents were worse than I could have ever imagined. Videos, audio recordings, signed documents from people I wished I didn't recognize. It wasn't just about crimes, but a system built to hide them, protected by every corner of power. I knew that publishing those files meant signing my death sentence, but I couldn't turn back anymore. I contacted the journalist and handed everything over. She looked at me with a mix of determination and fear. "This time they won't stop us," she said. The following weeks were hell. The first publications triggered a storm. Famous names were linked to the most atrocious crimes. Some denied vehemently, others vanished without a trace. Then came the silence. One night, I woke up to the sound of breaking glass. The black SUVs had finally arrived. I didn't try to escape. There was no place far enough. They gave me a message to carry with me forever. This is not a war you can win, but fighting it makes you free. I don't know if the truth will ever win. Powerful people know how to control everything, and the shadows are their territory. But I do know one thing. Every voice that speaks, every secret revealed, makes the darkness a little less deep. Maybe I won't be the one to see the day the truth comes out, but someone will. And when it happens, the shadows will finally disappear.